I have to keep restarting this recording because every time I start it, I just sit here and say nothing. I don't know how this is going to go. I've, run the simulation, 100 times in my mind over the past week because this is all I can think about. So, I guess off the bat, just the disclaimer, this is going to be not necessarily an uncut video. I will be making some edits, but it should be noted that this is not obviously following the format that I normally follow. So this video is completely off topic, off the normal focus of the channel. And again, because this is literally the most sensitive issue in my life, I have no intention of censoring myself throughout this video. So if that's a problem for you, you should watch something else. So where do I start? So today, that is the day that I'm releasing this, right now as I'm recording it, it is the late eve of the second anniversary of the day that my child was taken from my home, both without my foreknowledge, so without my permission, and obviously without my approval. And this is something that haunts me. I don't want to say literally every day. It used to be every day, especially while all the court nonsense was going on and everything, and the divorce was. It's a mess. I don't even know where to start. So I guess I'll just start at the beginning, whatever that is. My, concurrent wife, my now ex-wife, we were married for a long time. We were married for well over a decade, 11 years, 12 years. I don't even remember exactly what it was, nor do I care to make the calculation. But it was a long time, over a decade. And in that time, people can change. They can change a lot. And the way I see it, I had changed a lot, and my wife had changed very little. And we had been together since we were teenagers. We were literally, high school sweethearts. That's what we were. I was her first boyfriend, and she was my first girlfriend, and we never connected with anyone else. So we were married for a long time, and we started having a lot of disagreements, a lot of fights, and I was calling it differences in fundamental values, because that's what it was. I'd say it's probably started more like, I don't even know now at this point. Well, it was just after my daughter was born, so it would have been about 4.5 years ago. Yes, 4.5 years ago, almost to the day actually, when I officially in my mind, rejected religion, Christianity specifically, and then what's the word I'm looking for? Identified as an atheist. And my Christian wife did not like that, so that caused a lot of tension, and that's where a lot of the changes began, I think. just the way that I view the world. The way that the way that I look at people, the way I think about people and situations versus the way I used to. It's so vastly different. But her views were the same, and we had a lot of collision. There was a lot of conflict in our lives, and in 2021 it was especially difficult. Things sort of came to a head, long story short, and my wife said that she wanted to go visit her parents in Pennsylvania with our daughter Ariel for a week to get away, and then she would come back, and we would work more on our marriage thereafter. I wasn't keen on the idea, especially since we both knew that her mother was actively trying to tear us apart. So, and that's a whole can of worms right there. She wasn't even talking to her mother for a while. We both agreed that it would be unwise for her to speak to her mother because her mother was trying to end our marriage. So she goes from saying, yes, that's a good idea, I won't talk to her, to I'm going to spend a week with her in her house. That's a smart strategy, right? Except obviously the problem is that wasn't really her intention, as time would soon tell. So I wasn't keen on the idea because, I smelled something fishy in the air. But what could I do? Ban her from leaving the house? Tell her, no, you can't go? No, I don't have that right. So, I couldn't do anything. I had to just let her go, have her little vacation, and then, presume that everything would resume as it was supposed to. But evidently that's not what happened. She was scheduled to leave on Sunday, October 3rd of 2021. That's Sunday, October 3rd. But instead what happened was that she got home from work in the afternoon on Friday, October 1st. And I was watching our daughter, as that was the schedule. She worked during the day, I worked in the evenings, and then we just tag teamed it with our daughter. So she gets home from work in the afternoon. She goes into the bathroom to do, I'm thinking, bathroom things, whatever. And I had to go to work. So I go over to the bathroom door, I say, I'm leaving now, bye. And honestly, I can't even remember whether she said bye or not. But I didn't think anything of it. But I went off to work. And then when I came home from work at 10:30 p.m., expecting to see, as was the custom, either my wife with my daughter in the living room as she was watching TV, but having her put to sleep, or in the bedroom doing that same thing, I instead came home to nobody at home. There was nobody there. So, at this point, things are I didn't panic because I was actively trying not to panic, because it was obviously an extremely strange situation, especially, again, just very fishy. Like, this is really suspicious. This never happens. So I was trying not to panic, but I was definitely scared. Scared for the worst, that she'd taken off. Where is she? So I immediately get on my phone and I call her. She's, she goes, hello. I said, where are you? I'm with my parents. I said, you're with your parents. You weren't supposed to be with them for another 2 days. I left a note. I said, you left a note? And I walked over to exactly the place where I expected to see a note. That's her usual place where she left notes. And there it was on the countertop. It said, left early for the week, period, with Ariel. As if our daughter was an afterthought. Oh, I better slip that in. Oh, yeah. So, by the way, Ariel's with me. That's why, you can't find her in our apartment. So, as you might imagine, at this point, I am openly and aggressively expressing my discontentment, my disapproval of what is happening, because it's obvious at this point what's happening. She took off. There was no notice. I didn't give permission for my child to leave the house. I can't control where she goes. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let my then 3-year-old be taken out of my place without my permission. So she tries playing it cool, like, oh, you need to calm down, blah, blah, whatever. I said I wanted to have a video call. I wanted to see Ariel. I wanted to see my little girl. So she agrees, and she puts me on video. We see each other on video, and she has her phone. She has the camera facing toward the ceiling, which was an obvious indicator that she didn't want me to know where she was. And then I see my little girl's face, and she seems like she seemed like scared, almost scared of me. That's almost how it seemed. Like she was scared to talk to me. And that's what my wife was saying. She's scared to talk to you. Why? Why would she be scared to talk to me? That doesn't make any fucking sense. So I see her face, and I start, telling her that I love her. And I just start crying. I start bawling. And at that point, my wife goes, okay, and then takes the phone and hangs it up. Okay. That's the very last thing that she said to me that night. That's the very last thing she ever said to me, period. Through voice. Okay. Like, okay, that's enough of that. You've had enough time. So I get off the phone with her, and I called my dad, who fortunately was up. Maybe he wasn't up. I don't know. I think he was. But I called him, and he hears me. I'm crying on the phone. I'm just bawling my eyes out. And he's trying to calm me down. What's going on? What's going on? Talk to me. What's going on? And I said they took her. Anna left with Ariel, with her parents. They came and picked her. Oh, yeah. Forgot to mention that her parents were scheduled to come again on October 3rd, at Sunday, to come and pick her up to take her to Pennsylvania. That was the plan. But instead they came 2 days earlier. You don't just spontaneously show up 2 days earlier. So it was all obviously premeditated. I mean, obviously, it was premeditated. But my point is, the sick part is that she was playing it off as if it wasn't. She was acting as if it was all spontaneous. Like, oh, we just decided to leave earlier. You said we could go. That's what she said. You said I could go. Jeez. So I got my dad on the phone, and he says, "Do you want to call the police?" I said yes. I want to call the police. So we got, in a conference call, a three-way conference call with a dispatcher who told us that there was nothing they could do because we were married. Nothing they can do. Interesting. Very interesting. And of course, whenever I tell people this part of the story, they all react the same way. And of course, because we all know quite well that if I were the one who had taken our 3-year-old out of the apartment and she were the one calling the police, I would have seen flashing red and blue lights behind us within 30 seconds max. So that wasn't any help. And I fast forward through the next portion of that week, and because as if things at that point weren't complicated enough. It was still a question in the air. Is she gonna come back? Because they were still playing it off as I asked her on the phone before we were dismissed, "Are you coming back?" And she said, "I don't know yet. I haven't decided." Inconclusive. Okay, so I still kind of, was holding on to hope, but at the same time, I it's I have a history of being rather naive, so obviously in hindsight it was a joke, just a joke. Like, there was obviously no way she was coming back. So as if things weren't complicated enough at that point, I'm looking into speaking with a divorce attorney, because I'm not really expecting her to come back, and I'm like, you know what, I'm done with this. This is ridiculous. So I'm looking up, it's a week later at this point, and I'm looking up information, for a divorce attorney. My dad's giving me advice on things, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna contact them tomorrow. That would be Monday. I'm gonna contact them tomorrow. Obviously, no one's working on a Sunday, so I'll contact them tomorrow. So I go to bed that Sunday night, and I was working second and third shift because I'm working both shifts at work, getting overtime because I'm thinking I need to be able to show a court that I'm willing to work for my little girl, that I can take care of my little girl. Okay. So I go to bed Sunday night, and because I'm working third shift hours, I'm waking up late. So at 11:30 in the morning, 11:30 in the morning, boom, 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 and I jump the fuck out of my bed, because I'm like, that can only be one person, and it's a cop. There is a cop banging on my door. Nobody else bangs on a door like that. So I'm out of bed, and I'm at the door, across the house, like 5 seconds. Sure enough, it's an officer standing there. And the panic starts to set in. What the fuck is this? He hands me a sheet of paper. A stack of papers, rather, a document. It's a restraining order. A restraining order signed by a judge indicating that I'm not only disallowed from contacting my wife in any fashion whatsoever, but I also am not permitted to contact my daughter by any means whatsoever. And I believe this was October 10th that this happened. I asked the officer if he could step into my place and, explain this thing that I'm looking at. He goes, it's all there. Basically, he just very dismissive. You'll figure it out, basically. Just read it. Okay, thanks. Thanks, officer. You're great. You're the best. So I start reading through it. I can't contact my wife. I can't contact my daughter. We, not allowed to have a weapon that is a firearm in my house. I'm not allowed to, leave the area. I can't leave the state or whatever. I can't. Oh, and she said she said on this thing she wants, what she's going to argue for in court is that she wants child support, and she wants me to ship all of her stuff and all of Ariel's stuff to her in Pennsylvania. In other words, this was one fucking strategy. This whole thing was one big plan to get my kid out of the state, literally go across the country, and never let me communicate or have any association with my daughter ever again. This was basically her way of saying, I want all the perks of a divorce without actually going through the hassle of a divorce. Well, spoiler alert, it wasn't that easy. She didn't get her wish. But to say before that, yes, I was going through a very rough time. It was a very confusing time. But at that moment, when I stepped in to my kitchen and I start reading this thing and what it implied, at that moment I just went nuts. I started taking her pictures and tearing them up, and I'm just freaking out. It's got a court date on there. I think it was October 21st, I think. So I had 11 days to get myself an attorney, a Pennsylvania attorney, because that's where she filed the order. So I had to get myself a Pennsylvania attorney to fight for me. So what was scheduled in my mind to be a call to Cordell and Cordell for the purpose of petitioning for divorce ended up instead turning into consulting Cordell and Cordell to get my kid back from Pennsylvania. And that's what they said. When they talked to me, they said, well, we got to work on this first. So I hired a Pennsylvania attorney, and I had my court date You know, I was literally on trial. And, you know, it just fucking gets worse. It just gets worse and worse. The longer the story goes, it just gets worse and worse. So I get my attorney there. And fortunately, COVID had already happened by then, and people had gotten comfortable with video trials. Otherwise, I'm confident that I would have had to, at least I suspect I would have had to drive my ass to Pennsylvania to deal with their bullshit. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. So I'm sitting at my computer at like 7:30 a.m., dressed literally head to toe in, the best clothes that I have, my best dress. I'm even in my dress shoes, for fuck's sake, sitting at my computer. It's just minutes before the trial starts. My attorney calls my phone and she says, "Do you know anything about basically it's they have a different name for it and it escapes me, but it's the Pennsylvania equivalent to what is here in Wisconsin, CPS, Child Protection Services. I think they call it like Child and Youth Services. I don't know, something weird." I said, "No, nobody's contacted me about anything." She said, "They have an investigation going on you right now for allegations of, physical, like, and or sexual assault against your daughter." Well, this is news to me. Nobody contacted me. I haven't got so much as a phone call, no letters, no nothing. She said, "No one's contacted you?" I said, "No, no one said anything to me." She said, "I'm telling you as your attorney that if we go through with this right now, you're going to lose." So I gave her permission to have the trial postponed, or rather to request that the judge rather have the trial postponed until a later date. Well, that later date happened to be 2 months later, December. They wouldn't listen to me for another, it was a month and a half or 2 months or something. It was in December. Which meant I was going to go at least those, 2 months more not speaking to my child. And this is when my attorney made the request. She said, could the father at least, have calls, like video calls with his daughter in the meantime? And the words that came out of that fucking judge's mouth haunt me constantly. He goes, "That's not what the mother wants. That's not what the mother wants." I've heard those words in my head. They were back when this was all happening. There were times I swear I was hearing those words in my head as often as I was taking breath. That's not what the mother wants. And as he denied that request, that right there, that's what broke me. That's what broke me down. That I wouldn't be able to so much as speak to my little girl for another 2 months. I literally started to faint. Like, I could feel my head, like my eyes were closed, like things were literally going black. Everything was getting dark and I was starting to faint, and it was the single most intense and but just the sheer force of will that it took to keep my head up in the middle of this hearing, not really, in front of this judge, just so that I didn't pass out and, slam my fucking head on the desk. Just, I had hardly ever had to work so hard, like, cognitively, again, like I said, by just sheer force of will in my entire life. Just trying to stay awake at that moment. Because I was leaving. And I had never felt that before, and I haven't felt it since. That it's the strangest feeling. When you hear news that is so terrible that it literally knocks you unconscious. Well, I got on the phone with my attorney after that pleasant little session we had. And she goes, "You should prepare yourself not to see your daughter for Christmas." I'm thinking, no fucking shit. So, enrolls December. And, I was allowed, the judge would allow me, the judge would allow me to send my daughter Christmas presents through, again, their equivalent to Child Protection Services. I had to send it to their office in Pennsylvania, which cost me $50 to ship, by the way. So not only was I not even allowed to, talk to her, but I had to, if I'm going to ship presents, I have to do it through this service. But I'm getting ahead of myself because it wasn't until actually, I think, December that he made that ruling. Yes, I'm certain now because of how it worked out afterward. So anyway, get to December and I get to this hearing. And her side gets to talk first. And this woman, that is my ex-wife, went on for easily 20, if not 30 minutes. Just went on and on and on about such nonsense. And granted, some of the claims she made were true. But a lot of the stuff she was saying was just ridiculous. Even in the restraining order, because I read the report. It's part of what the cop handed me. But even in this thing, it's literally 2 pages long, 2 full sheets of her handwritten testimony of literally, and I mean literally every fucking thing she could think of that I did wrong over the The entire course of our marriage. The entire thing. Everything she could think of that could get me in trouble, she put it on there. Now, mind you, I have no criminal record. She had never called the cops before. But we're not even talking about things like threats. She said that I threatened her 3 different times. Didn't give any details. But I threatened her on 3 occasions, apparently. And so we're not even talking about things like that, you know, hitting her, threatening her, all that kind of stuff. Never did that stuff. So, and this, her report, her testimony, you know, her handwritten testimony on this restraining order, it's actually quite interesting from like a research standpoint. And mind you, I have a psychology degree, so even though this document, you know, is a relic, so to speak, of, you know, just like the most awful, darkest period of my life, it's still like interesting from like a psychological perspective, because what happened was she made all these claims throughout this thing, 2 pages. And the way it starts, a lot of what she was saying, I don't want to say off, you know, just by memory everything she said, but many of the things she was saying at the beginning of it were true. Yeah, I did punch the lid on that garbage can. Yeah, I did kick the car years ago. Okay, yeah, I did these things. But then she started making claims that like they were true, but they had to be understood in a certain context. And she wasn't giving the context. So it's like the way she was stating it, it's like, no, it's really not true. It would be true if you stated it this way. Like, you're not explaining the whole thing. But then she started making claims towards the end of it that were just so weird. They were so absurd and just not true. They just weren't true. Like, she said that I left bruises on our daughter's arms. Oh, spooky. Okay. Where are these bruises? Got any photo evidence, perhaps, for this claim? No photo evidence. Nothing. Couldn't provide anything. Couldn't provide anything even to the investigators she was speaking with. And then she claims in her report, I didn't think my husband would do that. And that's why she didn't have any evidence. I didn't think my husband would do that. I think he was capable of that. Then why the fuck did you leave? So stupid. I even proved to my attorney that she was lying, and it just didn't matter. Didn't matter. But we get to the trial in December, and she rambles for literally like half an hour. And it took so long to get through everything that I didn't even have a chance to speak. My side didn't get a chance, and the judge ran out of time. Which meant that we had to meet again for a 3rd hearing in April. So, you think I got to talk to my daughter in those 4 months? Don't bet on it, because you'd lose. Nope. No communication with her. No communication with her except for Christmas. I was allowed to contact her specifically during Christmas time so that I could watch her open her presents. Woo! Oh, by the way, in that November preceding the December where I had my second hearing, that's when I finally got a divorce attorney here in Wisconsin under my hire. So for the next few months, I would have not one but two attorneys under my hire. I'd be paying two attorneys at the same time to get my daughter back. So yeah, I got some debt. And it was during that period after December that, I was working on the arrangement with my mother to move into this place, because this is where, she was renting at the time, and she was living by herself. Her other kids, my siblings had already moved out. They'd already grown and moved out by then. So here I am. But we finally get to the trial in April. April 6th. And, we had all the evidence on our side that they did their investigation. Child Protection Services here in Racine. They went through. They came over. They were in my apartment I was living in. Interviewing me with my attorney there on video. Long story short, nothing to see here. I read his report, and the investigator's words were that her claims could not be substantiated regarding the alleged abuse of my daughter. Couldn't substantiate it. So we found nothing, as people tend to do when there's nothing to find. And I'm also, you know what? We got to that hearing. So my ex-wife, she gets to talk for half an hour. I didn't even get 5 minutes. In fact, I didn't get to make any sort of speech or testimony at all whatsoever. Both of the attorneys, her attorney, my attorney, asked me questions. I answered the questions. And that was it. I didn't get to say anything else. And at the end of it, the problem is, by the time we had that hearing, my case, my CPS case, hadn't actually been closed. And the thing was, they needed a closed case. It needed to be official. It needed to be officially closed. And her attorney was arguing that none of the evidence mattered because it wasn't closed, you see. Well, fortunately, the judge wasn't even that stupid to go with that. So he asked my attorney whether he could get the investigator that was at my place and writing the report, if he could get him on the phone, get him on video or whatever, if he could contact this guy during the hearing to give a testimony so he could hear firsthand his conclusions. And I gotta tell you, I think because of just how downhill this was going, I can't say it like conclusively, but like if I had to choose one or the other, I'm pretty sure I don't think I would have. I think she would have won entirely if he wasn't able to talk to that guy, because we got a hold of him, and everything my attorney was saying, that guy confirmed. It was all in the report. The court had the report. He just wanted to hear it from the guy. He wanted to hear it from the guy. Like as a substitution for, the case having not been closed. So we exit that hearing, and my attorney gets back to me and says that the judge did rule for an effective restraining order for the next year and a half, October 6th of 2023. What he also ruled was that my daughter would be nowhere on the order. In other words, I was free to communicate with her, by whatever means we could negotiate. She wasn't on it. I couldn't talk to my wife by any means. Stay away from her. But with regard to my daughter, it said nothing. Because they couldn't prove that I was an abusive psychopath. Go figure. So we ended up working out, video calls, because he said, I was legally entitled to video calls. The judge made this a thing. So I got to have, I think it was either 2 or 3 video calls a week. But that's what I had. For the next 2 months, that's what I had. Up until, that was April, May, June. Yeah, it was 2 months of that until early June. When we went to court, we had our first hearing for divorce here in Wisconsin. And before the actual court hearing, though, we were talking to a commissioner. We had a hearing with a commissioner before we had a hearing with the judge. So this was early June that this happened. And let's see, let me get my thoughts straight. We had this hearing with this commissioner, and because my wife was under a protective order, they granted her the privilege of staying in Pennsylvania with my daughter, of course, and having her trial, over the phone. She would participate over the phone. I had to be there in person at the courthouse, but she could do it over the phone because, I'm like big and scary and stuff. And during this hearing, the commissioner was clearly unhappy with what my wife did. She goes, "Did you have the father's permission to leave?" And then she kind of dodged the question. She said, "Did you have the father's permission?" She said, "No." And then she looked at her attorney and said, "That's a felony." It just gets better. It only gets better. She said, "That's a felony." Well, I was granted the privilege shortly thereafter of having because it was just a short while after that we had a hearing with a judge. And maybe this was the one actually in June. It would have had to have been. This was the one in June. And before an actual judge. And this judge, and again, my wife is just on the phone. She still, again, didn't have to show up. But the judge ruled that she had to get our child back here in Wisconsin to visit, not to live yet, but to visit immediately. So I had preemptively taken my vacations for that year, or scheduled them rather, strategically around the possibility of perhaps, seeing my daughter on her birthday. So I had 2 weeks chiseled out in June for her birthday. Fortunately, we had this hearing before that, and the judge granted me, again, the big privilege of having 2 straight weeks with my daughter, no interruptions. Except my wife would then be entitled to a few video calls. That would be the only interruption, so to speak. I would have her for 2 weeks. And then she goes, "Sir, do you have any more vacation time besides that?" I said, "No, that's it." So I had those 2 weeks, and we threw a birthday party for my daughter. She was turning 4. That was, so this is 2022. And, oh man. Just, the planning that I did to prepare for her to come back. And then we met her, because I couldn't go and pick her up because I couldn't be around her mother. My mother has been, up to this point, working to facilitate, the exchanges of my daughter between my ex-wife and me. But she goes to pick her up from a McDonald's, and I'm sitting there at a local park waiting for her, right? And I'm just waiting, I'm so eager to see her. Because even though I've been talking to her over the phone for the past 2 months, over video, I hadn't seen my daughter in person. It had been 8 months since I had touched her. And just before that happened, I was at work and I asked a coworker who had experience with a nasty divorce long past. And I said, "Did you ever forget what your kids felt like? What it felt like to hold them?" He goes, "No." I said, "I can't remember. I can't remember what she feels like." It was that long. Didn't matter how hard I tried, I couldn't feel her skin. I could hear her voice. Oh man, did I hear her voice. I heard it every day. I heard it every hour. I heard her voice. Giggling, laughing, yelling, "Daddy, Daddy." I would look through Google Photos, because fortunately I had all that stuff backed up. I didn't even know I had it backed up. But I had a lot of stuff backed up on my PC because she took the external hard drive that she was storing all the photos on. But fortunately, I had a bunch of stuff. I had everything backed up on my PC as well as Google Photos, and I didn't even know it. So I really lucked out there because for those 8 months, man, that's especially the 6 months where I couldn't even talk to her. Like, that's all I had. That's all I had. I would just sit there and just lose time. I would just lose sense of time just sitting there and just browsing through the photos and watching the videos and just crying my fucking eyes out. I cried so much. I cried every day for months. I would cry multiple times a day. And I'm talking full out bawling sessions where the tears are just fucking flowing. And I'm just wailing. Like she was dead. And that's what my therapist told me. She said in your mind, your brain is having difficulty like distinguishing this situation you're going through with literal death. Like your brain, it feels like she's dead. I said yes. Because I didn't even know if I would ever see her again. It was all up in the air. I wasn't allowed to talk to her, see her, nothing. No contact whatsoever. So for all practical purposes, she was dead, non-existent. I wasn't even allowed to know like whether she was doing okay. She was just gone. For 6 fucking months. Gone. Oh, and then the the family court worker who was working on our case for our divorce, she goes, the stupid ass questions that they ask people sometimes, these people, I hate them. I hate them all. She goes, your ex-wife claims that, your wife claims that you claimed you were going to kill yourself. Is that true? No, I didn't say that. And then she goes, have you ever thought about suicide? And I'm thinking, what the fuck do you think? Yeah, I thought about suicide. Like, you take someone's child from them. And then even before that happened, she had threatened to take her from me. And then I'm just supposed to react like, oh, nothing happened. Oh, everything's hunky-dory over here. No. And there were times when I was struggling so much. There are numbers you can call for when you're struggling with such thoughts. Yeah, you better believe I called that number. And I called them more than once. There was one time I was stuck at a grocery store after work. I was stuck at a Meijer parking lot because I was walking through just doing what I do, just shopping. And then because I can't avoid everything. I walked past the, like the baby department, and there's, just like a cardboard, just a photo, just an image of, a dad playing with his baby. And I fucking lost it. And I got out to the parking lot in my car, and I called that number, and I was stuck out there I think I was stuck out there for about an hour. So I couldn't drive. It's too dangerous. Too dangerous to drive. Because not only could I not, focus on the road, it's like, well, when you're having those kinds of thoughts, driving's not a good idea. But I knew I couldn't go through with it because, I had to stay alive for my little girl. That's all I cared about. I promised her Before she was even born, I promised my little girl. I told her that Daddy would never give her a reason, give her an excuse to say that Daddy wasn't there. I would never give her a reason to say that. And then the bitch takes off. And she didn't so much as see my face for 6 months. So I'm sitting at the park waiting for her to arrive. I haven't seen my little girl, and I haven't been with her in 8 months. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. And my mother pulls up, and my little girl's in the car seat, and it looked like she hadn't grown an inch. She was still so tiny. She was so tiny. And she pulls up, and I'm standing right there looking through the glass, waving at her, saying hi. And I open the door, and she's got this big smile on her face, looks me right in the eyes and goes, "Did you miss me?" That's the very first thing she said. "Did you miss me?" I picked her up and I said, "Yes, I missed you so much." I miss you so much, baby. And then I gave her a bunch of presents. We went to a table, and I gave her a bunch of presents, and she liked them. Gave her this little stuffy I found at Walgreens, stuffy little. That's what she calls her, plush toys, all her little stuffed animals and things like that. She loves her stuffies. Then we played at the park, and we spent the next 2 weeks together. Went to a petting zoo. We had a birthday party. Did lots of stuff. She tried roller skates for the first time. Yeah. And, when she had to go 2 weeks after that, I wasn't sure how I was going to handle that. But I was like, I know I can't just like break down in front of her. I can't do that sort of thing. So I knew I just had to, keep cool, keep a level head. And it's not as if I was expecting her mother to take off with her again or anything like that. That wasn't going to happen, because now she's got the law watching her, and she can't do that now. So the three of us, my mother and I and Ariel, we dropped me off at the mall to just stand out there and wait as my mother went to take her back to that same McDonald's. And I think I handled it well. Probably better than I thought I would. But yeah, this picture I took the morning after. No, that is the morning that I had to return her to her mother. I took this photograph. Or my mother took it rather, as I was holding Ariel, obviously. And this, to think that that woman had the audacity to try to convince a court, as she's convinced so many other people, I'm sure, that I am just an absolute psychopath, foaming at the mouth, and scheming at every minute to cause harm to my little girl. Look at this picture. You see this? You see what she's doing? She's grabbing my face to kiss me. I picked her up and she took me by the face like this and gave me a big smooch. Because that's what kids do when they're terrified of their fathers. Pink and blue. I wear so much pink and blue. I still wear pink and blue all the time. Not like every day, of course, but it's a frequent. She loves pink and blue. Everything is pink and blue with her. Even before she left, she had told me explicitly. I asked her what her favorite color. She said pink and blue. And you better not say blue and pink, because that's wrong. She will correct you. You will be corrected. It's pink and blue. And when she got back, I asked her, are your favorite colors still pink and blue? She said yes. And they still are to this day. That's why I had this necklace made. This was a custom design that I had made. It's got a blue gem and it's got a pink gem, and her favorite colors, her favorite tones too. Cotton candy, pink and blue. Close to it anyway. The side with the blue gem says, or rather the side with the pink gem has her name on it. It says Ariel. And the side with the blue gem says Daddy. And so this is obviously my favorite necklace. I wear it a lot. Wear a lot of pink and blue. Since she left, I've been wanting to get a pink and blue tattoo, whole sleeve like this, on my forearm, with her name on it, all in pink and blue. It's just expensive, so hasn't happened yet. And that's when I started also, when she was gone, that's when I started, I figured, well, hey, I started, learning some things, like, as they say, discovering myself more, right? It's like, when you're steeped in religion and you're married and you've got all this stuff, it's all like kind of set in stone. And that's the problem. You start changing too much, and you're liable to create conflict. It creates problems. But I was like, well, I started taking interest in certain types of fashion and then whatnot, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna change my image, now's the time to do it, because she's gone. That way when, if by some act of divine intervention I happen to meet some other special lady, she knows what she's getting into. But, so like these earrings, right? My daughter asks about these a lot. The first time she mentioned them, she says, "Daddy, why are you wearing, why is the heart look like that?" I said, "Oh, sweetie, that's a broken heart. That's what a broken heart looks like." She goes, "Do you have a broken heart?" I said, "Yes, sweetie, I do." Yeah, yeah, I do. And the last time she saw me wearing them, she said, "Daddy, why are you wearing your broken heart earrings?" That's why I wear hearts in general, actually. I started wearing them because, I mean, there are a number of reasons, but the biggest one is because I love my little girl. So I wear hearts to remind myself. I was wearing them during that very dark period to remind myself that I have to keep going. I have to keep getting up in the morning, and I have to go to work, and I have to make money, and I have to keep my head screwed on right and not do anything drastic to myself or anyone else or anything like that, because I have to be there for my little girl. I cannot do anything stupid enough to compromise that. So that's why I wear the hearts, because they remind me of her. Well, I don't know if I have anything else really to say at this point. Yeah, this is a rough time of year for me. Hopefully, I don't suspect that will change anytime soon, but hopefully when my daughter is older, like significantly older, hopefully that'll go away. Certainly by the time she's an adult, I would hope it's gone by then, but you know, who knows. Um, but yeah, we finally got divorced, and ultimately she had to come back to Wisconsin, and we have 50-50 placement in custody of our daughter, and I'm paying child support. So the moral of the story, ladies, is that if you're having troubles with your man that seem irreconcilable, just leave. Take your child, take your children, take them all. Get out of there when he's not looking. Because what's the worst that could happen? They tell you, hey, you got to come back now. Oh, and by the way, have his money. That's the plan. That's the worst that could happen to you. Well, happy October 1st.